Tunde thought he was throwing his broke, pregnant wife into the Lagos rain to live his best life with a mistress. He didn't realize he just threw away a handcrafted Hermes bag and the only person standing between him and total financial execution. The Gbagada rain didn't just fall. It screamed. It soaked through Tunde's designer shirt, bought on credit, as he hurled Ifeoma's final suitcase into the muddy gutter. The leather cracked. Tunde laughed. His mistress, Sharon, sipped cheap champagne on the porch, watching the entertainment. But Ifeoma didn't beg, she didn't cry. She just stood there in her thrift store maternity dress, cradling her 6-month bump, watching Tunde with the cold, clinical pity of a goddess watching an ant walk into a trap. When Tunde's mother stepped forward and spat directly in Ifeoma's face, the world went silent. Ifeoma didn't wipe the spit with her hand. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a gold-plated satellite phone that cost more than Tunde's car, and made a 10-second call that was about to delete Tunde's entire existence. The leather cracked against the wet pavement. From the safety of the veranda, his mistress, Sharon, giggled into her glass of imported champagne. The vintage was questionable, but her smugness was top shelf. To her, this was the season finale of a blockbuster reality show she had been craving for months. For 36 months, Ifeoma had played the role of the humble, low-maintenance housewife with the precision of an Oscar-winning actress. She had worn drugstore moisturizer, used public transport when the family car, a tired Toyota Big Daddy, was at the mechanics, and bought her skirts from thrift stores in Yaba. She had never once mentioned that the interest on her secondary trust fund, the one she used for emergencies, could buy Tunde's entire family tree and still have enough left to renovate their ancestral village. But tonight, the masquerade had reached its expiration date. His mother, Mrs. Adekole, emerged from the house, wrapping her abada cloth around her waist with the practiced rhythm of a woman preparing for a physical fight. This was the woman who had made Ifeoma's life a living hell since the traditional wedding, constantly complaining that Ifeoma brought nothing to the table but her womb and a degree from a nameless university. "Pack your things and go back to the village where my son picked you from," Mrs. Adekole screamed, her voice competing with the thunder. "Finally, my son has found a woman like Sharon, a girl with class, a girl whose father owns a fleet of interstate buses, not a liability like you who can only eat and grow belly." Ifeoma almost let out a snort. Interstate buses. Sharon's father owned a fleet of 25 luxury buses. Ifeoma's father owned the refinery that produced the diesel those buses ran on. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a blunt knife. What happened next would shatter Tunde's world faster than a bad bank loan. When his mother, in a fit of demonic energy, spat directly onto Ifeoma's face, the pregnant woman did not flinch. She wiped her cheek with a slow, regal grace. She pulled a gold-plated satellite phone from the pocket of her cheap maternity dress, a phone Tunde once mocked, calling it a shoddy Chinese knockoff. She made one call. "Daddy? Yes, the social experiment is over. I thought there was a human being in here, but I found only a collection of expensive clothes and bad intentions. Send the convoy to the Gbagada address. I am done." The silence that followed was louder than the thunder. Tunde frowned, his heart doing a strange rhythmic dance against his ribs. Mrs. Adekole's face, previously a mask of triumph, began to drain of color. She didn't know who was on the other end, but the sheer, vibrating authority in Ifeoma's voice was the kind you only heard from people who owned private jets. Ifeoma said softly, her voice calm and clear, "Tunde, I hope you like the rain, because by tomorrow it is the only roof you will have over your head." "What are you talking about, Ifeoma?" Tunde blustered, though his voice shook. "Is this part of the madness? Sharon, can you see this woman? She thinks she's in a Nollywood movie." Sharon laughed, but it was a nervous sound. The rain was getting colder, and something about the way Ifelma was standing, back straight, chin up, despite being soaked to the bone, made the mistress feel suddenly very small. God, Tunde, I cannot believe you endured this boring woman for 3 years, Sharon purred, trying to regain the momentum. She leaned into his shoulder, her perfume, a cloying scent that smelled like a desperate attempt at old money, mixing with the smell of wet asphalt. Look at her. She's not even fighting back. No spirit, no ginger. What kind of woman just stands there while her things are being thrown out? The kind of woman who knows she owns the ground you are standing on, Ifelma whispered. She thought back to their courtship. Tunde had been a charming, struggling MBA student when they met at a public library. She had liked that he seemed to value the simple things. She had wanted a man who loved her for her mind, not her father's oil blocks. She had said yes to his modest ring, a ring she later found out he had bought with a high-interest loan from a predatory app, and moved into this duplex with a 30-year mortgage he constantly complained about. Mrs. Adekole descended the porch steps, her expensive lace wrapper dragging in the mud. 3 years, I have watched you drag my son down. No ambition, no style, no powerful uncles to give him contracts. Just a burden he was too kind-hearted to shed. But thank God he has finally found Sharon. Her family has connections. Connections, Ifelma repeated. The word felt like ash in her mouth. You mean the connections I gave him? Tunde, did you really think you got that 500 million naira rebranding contract because of your brilliant PowerPoint presentation? My father's secretary signed that deal anonymously because I begged him to give you a chance to prove you are a provider. Tunde froze. What 500 million naira contract? That was a competitive bid. It was a petty gift, Ifelma countered, and instead of using it to build our home, you bought Sharon a Mercedes you haven't finished paying for, and you gave your mother a diamond set that is ironically a high-quality fake. Mrs. Adekole gasped, clutching her throat. The black SUVs, 6 bulletproof Mercedes G-Wagons, arrived exactly 14 minutes later. They did not just drive into the street, they colonized it. The neighborhood became a high-security zone in seconds. Men in dark suits and mobile police escort formed a perimeter around the property with military precision. When the door of the lead Rolls-Royce Cullinan opened, the street went silent. Chief Olowogboro stepped out. He was a man whose agbada was made of lace so expensive it probably had its own insurance policy. He didn't even acknowledge Tunde or his mother. His focus was entirely on Ifelma. Ifelma ne, he said, his voice like rolling thunder. You are soaked, and the baby. Ifelma replied, her voice filled with a warmth she had never shown Tunde. The baby is fine, Daddy, but I think I have seen enough of the common man's life. It is quite poorly lit and very rude. The chief's gaze finally shifted to Tunde. It was the look a man gives a cockroach he is deciding whether to crush or just ignore. So this is the visionary you chose to marry. He looks like a man who struggles with his basic arithmetic. Chief, Tunde stammered, his knees finally giving out. He fell to his knees in the mud. Sir, there has been a misunderstanding. Ifeoma did not tell us. We thought she was just a teacher's daughter. She was whatever she needed to be to see the truth of you, the chief barked, and the truth is quite pathetic. The dismantling was surgical. In 5 minutes, Tunde was informed that the house he thought he was paying a mortgage on was actually owned by an Olowogboro subsidiary, and he was being evicted within 72 hours. His job? Terminated by a single phone call to his CEO, who was currently trying to figure out how to apologize to the chief. The country club membership Mrs. Adekole bragged about, revoked. And Mrs. Adekole, the hospital charity board you chair, my mother is the primary donor. Expect a call in the morning. I am sure you will have plenty of time to spend with Sharon and her father's bosses now. I hear they don't have air conditioning. As the convoy swept away, leaving Tunde, Sharon and his mother standing in the rain with nothing but their pride and a cracked suitcase, Ifelma did not look back. She was already mentally deleting their contact information. Ifelma sat in a quiet, high-end pediatrician's office in the city of Enugu. She had moved away from the toxic noise of Lagos to find peace in the coal city. Her 3-month-old daughter, Adana, was sleeping peacefully in her arms, looking exactly like a more refined version of her mother. She looked like any other comfortable middle-class mother in her simple linen dress and sandals. She was currently going by the name Ify Martinez, using her mother's maiden name and working part-time at a local library and bookstore called The Reading Nook. She did this mostly because she loved books, but also because the habit of testing the waters was hard to break. She wanted to know if she could exist as a person, not a bank account.
She was about to leave when she heard a commotion at the reception. "Please, I will pay by Friday," a man was saying. He looked exhausted. He was wearing a faded polo shirt and jeans, holding a little girl who looked flushed with fever. "My health insurance hasn't activated yet because I just moved here for a teaching job. My daughter's fever is 103, please." The receptionist, a woman whose heart had clearly been replaced by an Excel spreadsheet, shook her head. "Policy is policy, Mr. Emeka. No deposit, no consultation. We are a private clinic, not a charity." Ifeoma felt a familiar pang in her chest. She remembered standing in the rain. She remembered being invisible. She remembered being treated like a liability. "Excuse me," Ifeoma said, stepping forward. She pulled out a card. Not her commoner's card, but the one linked to her private vault. "I will cover his bill and any medication the child needs. Please see them immediately. Dr. Okoro is in, isn't he?" The receptionist's eyes nearly popped out at the sight of the black diamond card. "Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am." The man, Emeka, turned to her. He had warm, intelligent eyes that looked like they had not seen sleep in 48 hours. "No, madam, I cannot let you do that. You do not even know me. I am just a teacher." "I know what it is like to need help and find only closed doors," Ifeoma said with a smile that reached her eyes. "Consider it a welcome to Enugu gift. Go on, your daughter needs the doctor." As it turned out, Emeka was a secondary school physics teacher, a widower raising his daughter Chidera alone. He did not have a car. He did not have a pedigree. What he did have was a way of talking to his daughter that made Ifeoma's heart ache. He made dinosaur sounds in the middle of the pharmacy to make the little girl laugh despite her ear infection. "Let me at least buy you lunch," Emeka insisted 2 weeks later when they bumped into each other at the library where she worked. "I cannot offer you a 5-star hotel, but there is a small restaurant nearby that makes the best nkwobi in the East. It's not fancy, but the taste is spiritual." Ifeoma laughed. "I love nkwobi. Fancy is overrated." For a year, she dated the physics teacher. She watched him carefully, her cynicism acting as a shield. She waited for the moment he would ask for a quick loan for a new phone, or the moment he would brag about dating a rich girl if he suspected her wealth. It never came. Instead, he brought her wildflowers he picked on his way to work. He spent his weekends helping her organize the children's section at the library. He treated Adana as if she were made of spun gold, teaching her the laws of gravity before she could even crawl. When he finally proposed, he did it in the library, in the middle of the science section. He was sweating, holding a ring that was clearly the result of 6 months of skipped lunches and careful saving. "Ifeoma," he said, looking nervous as he knelt between astrophysics and quantum mechanics, "I know I am just a teacher. I know we will have to budget. We might not live in a mansion, and our car might make a lot of noise. But if you will have me, I promise you, you will never have to stand in the rain alone. I will be a father to Adana as if she were my own blood. I love you, not for what you have, but for the peace you bring my soul." Ifeoma started to cry. This time, they were the right kind of tears. "Emeka," she said, taking his hand and pulling him up, "before I say yes, there is a small detail I should mention. You know that Chief Olowogbo who just donated a new science lab to your school and endowed a scholarship for teachers?" Emeka blinked, confused. "Yes, he's a great man, a titan of industry. Why?" "Well," Ifeoma smiled, wiping her eyes, "get your best suit ready. You are about to meet your father-in-law. And do not worry about the budget for the wedding. I think we can find a little something in my emergency fund to cover the cake." The revelation was not entirely smooth. Emeka was hurt at first, Not because she was rich, but because she hadn't trusted him. "I have been agonizing for months about whether I could afford to give you a good life," he said, staring at the photo of her at a Bolognese gala she finally showed him. "I felt like a failure because I couldn't buy you the world. And all this time, you owned the world?" "I didn't own the world, Emeka," she told him firmly. "I owned a lot of things, but I didn't have a partner. My last husband saw me as a stepladder to his ambitions. I had to know that if I lost everything, you would still be standing there making dinosaur sounds for our children. Would you?" Emeka looked at her for a long time, then he laughed. It was a deep, honest sound. "For you, I will make the sounds of the entire Jurassic Park." They married, in a ceremony that perfectly blended both their worlds. It was held at the Olowokbo estate in Ikoyi, but the decorations were handmade by Emeka's students. They had the best chefs in Nigeria, but Ifeoma insisted on a corner serving that specific Nkobi from the local restaurant where they had their first date. Chief Olowokbo walked Ifeoma down the aisle. He had grown to respect Emeka, mostly because the teacher was the only man who had ever looked the chief in the eye and told him his theories on solar energy were slightly outdated but ambitious. Tunde Harrison read about the wedding in a discarded copy of Forbes Africa while sitting in a cramped, on-air-conditioned office at a second-hand car dealership in Maza-Maza. He was currently trying to sell a 2008 Toyota Corolla with a slightly faulty gearbox to a man who was haggling over 10,000 naira. The photo in the magazine showed Ifeoma laughing mid-sentence while her new husband looked at her with an adoration that was almost embarrassing to witness. In the background of the photo, two little girls played with flower petals, one dark-haired like Ifeoma, one lighter-haired like Emeka's late wife, both clearly beloved, both clearly Wellingtons now. Tunde's own life was a series of unfortunate events. Sharon had left him 3 weeks after the Gbagada incident, moving on to a man who actually owned a fleet of interstate buses, only to find out that the man already had 3 wives who were not interested in a 4th. His mother, Mrs. Adekole, was now living in their ancestral village, constantly complaining to the neighbors about spiritual attacks and wicked daughters-in-law, while trying to explain why she was wearing glass beads instead of the diamonds she used to brag about. But Ifeoma never thought about them anymore. She was too busy. She and Emeka kept a comfortable but grounded home. She used her wealth to build clinics that didn't ask for deposits before treating children. On their first anniversary, Emeka gave her a framed photo. It was not a professional wedding portrait. It was a grainy print from the security footage of the pediatrician's office on the day they met. It showed Ifeoma approaching the desk, her expression determined and gentle, while Emeka held a feverish chidera. "This is the moment," Emeka had written on the back, "when I realized that angels don't always wear wings. Sometimes they just carry Target diaper bags and very powerful credit cards." Ifeoma hung it in her office at the Olowokbo Foundation. Whenever she felt the weight of her responsibilities, she looked at that photo. It reminded her that the greatest power wasn't in the money you had, but in the kindness you showed when people thought you had nothing. Some tests, Ifeoma reflected as she watched her husband and daughters playing in the garden, were indeed worth administering, and the results? They were simply, undeniably priceless.